Hi, I'm Antti Autti, and you're listening to Not Snowboarding Podcast. I admit I was living in this bubble that I'm like, okay, man, I'm doing competition every weekend or every other weekend, and I'm doing good, and that's super sick. And I didn't think about anything else, just making it happen. And then when you come back out of it, and it's springtime, for example, for the kids and for the riders, you're pretty tired after that time, and all you want to do is to snowboard with some of your friends, and then but you suddenly see that, oh man, all my friends are actually been doing the same tour, and they're really tired as well, so I don't have any buddies to go ride with. So having these competitions and stuff is super important, because all these grassroots events, because you can just go there and see that that's what snowboarding is about. You didn't start snowboarding for a medal or for a video part or to become even a professional. I think you started snowboarding because you really, really enjoyed being on that board and making turns.
Welcome to episode number 44 of the Not Snowboarding Podcast. I'm your host, Nate Musan. Today we connect with Finnish snowboarder Antti Autti as he's preparing to head south to New Zealand to score some backcountry turns. Antti has been one of the main riders pushing superpipe progression over the past decade. He's won tons of contests over the years, including the X Games. He's also represented Finland in the 2006 Olympics, where he very controversially ended up with a 5th place after a nearly flawless run. We get into Antti's thoughts on surfing and skateboarding's recent admission into the 2020 Olympics, as well as his transition from competitive snowboarding into the backcountry. Before we get into the episode, though, I'm super excited to share a word from our newest sponsor, Let It Block Sunscreen. Are you into snowboarding, surfing, skateboarding, or just trying to catch some bodacious rays? Then Let It Block has you covered. Let It Block is a mineral-based sunscreen, perfect for an active lifestyle.
Peeling dead skin off after a sunburn is a lot of fun. However, doing this often can lead to serious health concerns. Nate and I aren't as nerdy as you might think or hear in Nate's voice. We actually do get outside in hella sunny weather and need a sunscreen that will protect without the use of harsh chemicals.
Let It Block sunscreens are mineral-based, paraben-free. They protect against both UVA and UVB rays. They provide water-resistant protection for up to 80 minutes, and they are FDA approved for everyday use.
Whether you're at the beach, enjoying a sunny day on the slopes, playing a game of skate in an empty parking lot for some leftover french fries, getting pitted while crowd surfing at a lit AF music festival, or finally getting out of the dark room in your parents' basement to play Pokemon Go, Let It Block is your go-to in sunscreen.
Let It Block comes in 2 SPF 30 varieties, including their original formula and Sun DMC. For our fairer skin fans, use the Goth Block. It's rated at SPF 50.
When I've been fully consumed by a Stranger Things binge-watching marathon in the darkest possible room in my house, I grab Goth Block. If I've been sponging on my boogie board for weeks and I already have a decent base tan going, Sun DMC is my jam.
They are also the official sunscreen of the Surfrider Foundation. Let It Block is extending a special offer to the Not Snowboarding Podcast audience. Order 2 packages of sunscreen or more and receive 40% off by using discount code TNSP at letitblock.com. That offer is valid through the end of this year, 2016. It's a $12 savings, and oh, by the way, the holidays are coming up. Let It Block also makes the perfect gift. Use one for yourself and give one to your special someone. Hey AJ, so you were just doing some hiking.
So last weekend I was hiking around Yosemite and I did Half Dome, which is like I guess it's a big hike a lot of people do. And it was crazy. It was like, I've never been to Yosemite, and it's a really beautiful place. I mean, you can't even describe it or take photos, and you just kind of have to go there, and it's sick. But I did this hike, and took 12 hours or 13 hours to do, something like that. But what was cool is I got to actually use Let It Block in like a long exposure to the sun environment, and it was dope. I was hyped.
You said that it hasn't rained there in a long time and that it was sunny. I told you to be worried about the weather. I was afraid that you might get rain, but you were pretty confident that it was going to be sunny the whole time.
What actually did rain. So you jinxed it, and so the last part of hiking Half Dome, there's these like metal cables that go up this like really steep face, and you have to like climb these cables, and some people like even harness in and clip in with a carabiner, but I didn't do that. But coming down, we saw that we were up on top for a while, and then coming down, we were like, saw some weather moving in, heard thunder and shit, so we're like, oh, we should probably get moving. So I blame you for that. I don't really believe in people influencing the weather in that way, but I completely blame you.
But you made it out. You were safe.
I was safe. It was fine. It like sprinkled. It didn't really rain.
Did people die there?
Oh, Yosemite?
On Half Dome, on that trail you're on.
I don't know. I mean, I really don't know. I don't know if they would die. I mean, the only thing I can think of them dying from would be like a heart attack or some kind of stroke or something. Like, I don't know how many people fall off Half Dome or jump or whatever. It's a kind of a popular base jumping spot, I think, but they do it at night because it's illegal. But I was in the sun for a long, long time, and it was dope to have like a good sunscreen, and I did not get sunburned.
Which one were you running?
I used Goth Block on my face, and I might have used Goth Block all over, honestly, because I have tattoos on my legs, or I have a tattoo on my leg. And I kind of want that to always be covered by sunscreen, like a good sunscreen, because I don't want it to fade that much.
Nice.
So, but I think I used Goth Block all over, and it definitely it's kind of crazy. Like it leaves like you kind of see it, like the physical blockers stay on top, not like the chemical ones. But I really like that because then I'm like, oh, I know I have sunscreen on, and I know what areas are covered up.
That same weekend, I went to the beach and went surfing, found some little anchor biter waves, and I was using the Goth Block as well on my arm, where I have most of my tattoos, and then I was using the Sun DMC on the rest of my body, on the back of my neck and face and head and other arms. And I like the fact that it shows you, it's on top. There's a little bit of whiteness from the sunscreen there, because after surfing for an hour and a half or so, I'd come back in and you could see exactly where you needed to reapply, anything that had been rubbed off from brushing up against the board. And it stayed on incredibly well, too, for the amount of time that I was in the water.
Yeah, I went surfing with it, and it stayed on. I only did my face, so I was pretty covered up. But it stayed on, and it seemed just better. I just like the feel of it. Like, I've used other sunscreens you get, like, at a drugstore or whatever, like a pharmacy thing. And they always feel kind of gross to me. They're always like kind of runny, and I don't know. Like I don't feel good putting them on. But the suns can be, having a sunburn sucks.
Yeah, those ones are like greasy or chemically. You just know that you're putting some weird chemicals on, and you read the ingredients on Let It Block, and it's in large part stuff you can understand. It's strawberry fruit extract. What else? Green tea. Grapeseed extract, kiwi, blueberries, cranberries. All of these things make sense. It's not just a bunch of like hard to pronounce words that are coming out of some weird laboratory. And the number one ingredient's water.
It's really enticing to eat when I read the ingredients, but that doesn't taste that good. Like it smells pretty good. It actually, I like the smell and I like the feel, but the taste isn't as good as you'd think if you read the ingredients.
You don't like broccoli, though, so maybe that's why. There's broccoli extract, there's hemp seed,
that's
goji
true.
Berries.
There's that stuff, and it sounds awesome. I love all that stuff. But then when you eat the sunscreen, it's not as good. But
but
I think
your tongue
it might be
doesn't
an
burn that
acquired
way.
taste I'll get used to.
Your tongue doesn't burn that way.
Yeah, my tongue. I swear my tongue's gotten burnt before.
And you're
Like,
protecting your inner lip tattoo.
yeah, like covering that up. And my esophagus, I want to cover that up with sunscreen. You never know. The roof of my mouth, my teeth need covered.
Well,
I use it on my lips. Actually, like I use it on my lips 'cause my lips will get burned. But it doesn't feel too bad on my lips. But when you really like you swallow it, the taste is like, but
for snowboarding, that's real. I mean, that's one of the lips, the tip of the nose,
oh,
maybe.
dude. Yeah. The lips, I got burnt bad this in like May and riding in Mammoth, and my lips were gnarly, like chunks of skin, blood, gnarliness.
Ugh.
So I'm like set now that I have like a rad sunscreen that feels good, smells good, like performs well. And I like the idea that going to a mineral base away from a chemical base. I mean,
No animal products.
no animal products, which is awesome. Like not it's cruelty free, and that's super rad. And yeah, I'm really stoked to have. This is something that I like dread trying to find, like a good sunscreen. So now I'm like, that's one less thing I even think about. And like the packaging's dope. Like I can fly with this. It's like TSA approved, and it's not like bulky. It's like this like I don't know how to describe the packaging.
It's almost
It's
like
just
a wider toothpaste, a wider, shorter toothpaste setup.
Yeah.
It's perfect just to throw in a bag. I put it in my surf bag, and it's right there when I need it. And similar experience to you. I've been using it for a couple of weeks now at the beach surfing, and no burns. Love it.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's super sick.
And
It's it makes so much sense to have like good sunscreen, even if you're snowboarding. Like I ride sunny days and I've gotten burnt and it sucks. And even like on my face, you don't even need that much, but having that sunscreen on your face is key. Like I don't love being covered up all the time. I get really hot. So another big thing is, a reason like the Surfrider Foundation has picked Let It Block is because there may also be evidence that, chemical sunscreen has an impact on coral reefs and ocean life.
I believe it, man. I've paddled out into a heavy lineup before.
Yeah.
And as you're paddling out, you'll like see and smell other people's sunscreen in the water.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's like 23 million surfers or something. And if all of them are using chemical sunscreen every day and, or some portion of that, and it's always going into the ocean, you're always like, I don't know, that's probably not good. And that's just surfers. Imagine people going to the beach using sunscreen. So, I mean, there could be evidence to suggest that this isn't good for the environment or your health. So I'd be willing to, move toward a mineral base for myself and for the world.
Yeah, frankly, there's tons of sunscreens out there, and for me, it's always been an afterthought until I met the guys from Let It Block, and now it's at the forefront of my mind because it's like, hey, let's be proactive here. Let's make sure that we don't get burnt, and let's make sure that we don't damage ourselves or the environment more, and it's super cheap.
I mean, even if it was like super expensive, I would still go after it. Like if it's something that's worth it to me, I'd rather just spend the money and have something rad than like save a couple dollars and be like, wow, this is not good for me or the environment. So what am I doing? What am I doing with my life? And it like feels better. It's cheesy, but I can't say like enough good stuff about it. Like I would suggest anyone use this over, something else.
For sure. I agree. Use the discount code at letitblock.com, TNSP, for 40% off throughout the end of this year. And with that, let's get into the episode with Antti.
Antti, how are you doing?
Oh, I'm good, thanks. Just packing my gear here. Heading to New Zealand in a couple of days.
Big trip.
Yeah, 1 month. Trying to go score some pow. We'll see.
How's their season doing? Do you know? I've been even following.
It's been slow start, but past month they've been getting quite a lot of snow, so I think they have a good base. And yeah, usually end of August is really good time to be there. So this is like my 10th year to go there. So yeah, it'll be fun for sure.
You have your checklist out?
Yeah, we have some lines that we want to go, so we'll see. We're gonna be there for 1 month and just be in the waiting game really to go write those lines, and we'll see if it's gonna work or not. But it's fun anyways. A lot of good friends there, and shredding starting the season, so it's good.
Are you there to mostly film and shoot photos, or is there like another plan?
Now I'm just going to film and shoot some photos for my online video part actually. So that's the main goal for the trip for sure. But first week I'm just gonna go shred for a bit and get back into it. So.
Is there one resort that you're kind of basing out of for base camp?
I'm staying in Wanaka in town, and there's like 5 different resorts, and then there's couple heli operators and some spots where you can go hike in the backcountry bowls and stuff. So there's a bunch of options over there. So it's really good. Like you don't have to only stay at one resort over there. There's a bunch of different places to go.
When you're packing for a trip like that, how many snowboards do you bring, and do you bring a pow surfer?
I don't bring a pow surf this time, but I do have 2 boards. I have one that's more or less just for pow, and the other one's like an all-around board. So, yeah.
Gotcha. What is your relationship been with pow surfing lately? I just noticed a picture in your Instagram feed a while back.
Oh yeah, I'm really stoked on it for sure. I think we have like where I live in Rovaniemi, Finland, we have this little company here that my friends are shaping pow surfs and stuff. So it's really cool because, it's bringing a different type of feel to, especially when you go in the trees and stuff. Because, for example, in Finland here, you don't like get to do that really good, amazing tree riding, but with pow surf it changes a lot. So it's really cool. I mean, and also it's like I think you look things a little bit differently because your feet are not attached. So it's like I don't know. It's just really cool. Like the way we usually do that is that we will go write some lines or film somewhere, and after the day is kind of done, we just go and do some pow surfing as well. So it's a good combo for a day.
Yeah, I just recently got into it this winter, and having your feet free, once you start to move and get used to it, you almost forget that your feet are free. It just feels like you're locked in when it's all dialed.
Yeah, it's really good, and it's especially when the snow is really good. You can definitely charge. You can go fast too and feel comfortable with it. So like last year we were in Japan, and my friend who came out and his luggage got lost, and the first day only we had like the best pow of the trip, and he was just pow surfing all the stuff that we were riding with snowboards. So it didn't really like make any sense for us to even do stuff like that with snowboards anymore. So it was really fun.
Yeah,
Definitely.
Can you catch air on a pow surf? Like how hard is it to ollie or like
I think
leave
it's
the
quite
ground?
hard. It's for sure hard.
Okay. So that's where the bindings play a big difference.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I think like the stuff that Volle Nuvel does is next level. It's like you'll definitely need to prepare to take beating when you try airs.
So super excited to talk with you today, man. And we are recording already. We just kind of jumped into it. The big thing that's of interest is your blog post that you've recently written about the Olympics, and you also sent out a tweet that kind of piqued my interest. You said surfing will handle this, but skateboarding might be in trouble. Maybe if you could just kind of back up and share a little bit about your Olympic experience and your thoughts around surfing and skateboarding for 2020.
It's a topic that I think I could speak forever, and I think all the snowboarders and everybody in the board sports will talk about it for a lot. But generally, I have really mixed feelings about Olympics because I basically made my whole first part of my career, like coming from Finland, getting into national team, going to FIS, and suddenly I was out there riding and I got into the Olympics, and that was my way to get out from Finland and become a professional snowboarder. So that really helped me a lot. But at the same time, it's like there is a lot of, especially like with parks and pipes, there's not that much imagination that they use. And of course, I don't know, sometimes I feel like the competition level in Olympics is not actually as good as where you would look at like X Games or US Open and stuff. So sometimes all the best snowboarders in the world are not actually in the Olympics because only the top 4 can get in from each country, which in my opinion makes a little difference comparing to like US Open and stuff. There's a lot of politics, of course, around it, but I've got a lot of out of Olympics too. So it's hard for me to go into like saying that that's not good and this is like way worse and what's the best. But I think like generally thinking like just trying to make snowboarding better in the Olympics would be the way to go. And the stuff, for example, that Danny Davis and some of the other riders like Norwegian guys are doing in snowboarding in competitions is really good way because they're bringing a lot of imagination in their riding and stuff, and it really brings out a better side of competition snowboarding in the Olympics as well.
I think it's interesting the way that you did this blog post and shared exactly what you said, mixed feelings, because people tend to take one side or the other for something like this most of the time, right? They tend to, snowboarding in the Olympics, that's bad. That's not what snowboarding is about. Snowboarding is about freedom, what have you. But you really came out and said, yeah, it feels a little dirty, but at the same time, there are benefits.
Yeah, there's definitely benefits. It's I'll give you an example. I like from my own career, it's like I started in Finland and all I wanted to do is to go ride half pipe. I wanted to ride pipe in the contests, and I saw everybody out there, and there wasn't really TTR that time. So the only way for me to get out was I got in the junior worlds. I was in FIS, and then suddenly I got in the national team where they're saying like, okay, you can go to do the World Cups in FIS, and I'm like, all right, I'll go there because I can go out. And I went to Whistler, and that was the first trip I ever done outside of Finland, and that was so sick. And I started traveling, and I did a lot of FIS contests, and all I wanted to really do is to get into the X Games and to these other contests, but doing FIS meant that I couldn't get any invites for those contests. So I only did FIS, and I got an invite to X Games, which really opened my eyes to different side of the snowboarding, because by that time I had only done FIS competitions, and then I started to think like, okay, this is much better for snowboarding than that. And it's just mixed feelings on the subject because I owe a lot to the national team and the way I've gone up and started my career. And for a lot of snowboarders in the world who are interested to do pipe or slopestyle and stuff, could actually easily make a career out of just being in the national team and trying to go to the Olympics. And this way they could still travel the world and sometimes catch some good pow days and enjoy life. And there's nothing bad about that.
So you definitely see the opportunity and the way, like, even if you're maybe not, like, I feel like you kind of got shafted a little bit at the Olympics, but you still, had all this background to like give you so much opportunity later on.
I mean, I definitely like, it's at the end of the day, to me, it's always like, I just want to snowboard, and I want to snowboard where I really enjoy snowboarding. And at that time, the place where I enjoyed the most snowboarding was in the superpipe. And, it's hard to explain, but it's just the fact that, when you do competitions and the Olympics are there, of course you want to go to the Olympics. And then you go to the Olympics, and there you will see the negative sides of the things. For example, that sponsors really need to find a way to promote their stuff there and like the products and stuff, because you're not going to be able to even wear your goggles with the right graphics, or wear your helmet with the graphics you want, and there's no stickers on the boards. And that's a shame, because all these guys, like the sponsors who are sponsoring the athletes, are pushing and backing them up to go to the Olympics, and then you can't really show the visibility from their support. It's kind of bad.
The
in my
Olympics
opinion.
they're even regulating what companies can tweet about the Olympics, I've heard.
I'm sure they would. I'm sure they are. I have no. I don't know about that, but definitely, like when I was doing in Turin, for example, I was getting ready to drop into my first qualification run, and there's an old guy coming to me and saying like, "Hey, you have a huge logo on your helmet," and I'm like, "No, I don't," but it's just graphic, and they go through everything so carefully, and then you have to start putting some tape over your helmet just because there's graphics and stuff. So that's just something that really annoyed me, because that's also something that you are there to represent yourself, but you're also there to represent the brands who are supporting you and your country. So it would be just nice to see that there would be some kind of way to like give more support to these brands who are actually supporting the athletes much more than the Olympics or the countries itself. So.
I'm glad you like mentioned that, because I thought it was weird. Like say, you rode for a small goggle company and they've been kind of, supporting you for a long time. And then like the last Olympics, everyone was wearing like Oakley goggles or whatever, because they like sponsored all the teams. And it's like, well, I don't ride for Oakley. I ride for this other company that I really like. And, this is an opportunity for them to get more exposure.
Yes. Yeah.
And so that's got to be tough. That's got to be really hard.
Yeah, but I think in that matter, it's just like brands need to think about how they can be and how they can get the best visibility out of the whole thing. But what Oakley did there was really great, because everybody remembers those green goggles for sure. But it's just a way it is. I mean, when I was in Turin, for example, and I was riding for Flow at that time, and when we did the competition, it didn't really matter how the end result didn't really matter for the company that much, because a lot of Japanese people were watching the contest then, and we all the Flow riders had the same exact graphic on the board. So when they saw that, they ordered a bunch of those boards for next season. So they did really well on that side of things, I thought. But at the same time, it's like, for example, for a clothing company, I was representing Billabong at that time, and we got lucky, and I was able to wear a Billabong, but then some other riders from the Finnish national team, they had to also wear Billabong, and that's not good for them. Like one of the guys was riding for Quicksilver, and it really doesn't make any sense to me that way,
It doesn't really help them out.
No,
not at all. No. One little show of expression. I don't know that it directly helped any sponsor, but kind of in its own way, did send a message. Was something you pointed out about Heikki Sorsa.
Yeah. Mm. Yeah, that's definitely. I mean, that's like Heikki. I used to look up to him a lot, and him doing that stuff in Park City was just amazing, because that's really like back in the day. I was thinking like, oh, that's kind of cool, and he's riding like that. But now I'm thinking about it. It's like it's really cool to see, like that's really showing showing his unique attitude towards the whole thing, and it defined a lot about snowboarding to me, at least when I think about it right now. So it's really cool.
Sure, he was put in that same environment where all of a sudden you're on a team and you have to wear all this stuff to look just like everyone else. And he said, well, what else can I control? Yeah. And it's my hair, so I'm going to do a big purple mohawk and just be very different.
Then like I was watching Sochi men's slopestyle, and when Ståle Sandberg got second, he was in the podium, and he had the mohawk on, and he was paying respects to Heikki, and I thought that was super cool. And that's the stuff that's really important in snowboarding. You know, it's like giving that kind of a cool attitude and reminding people that, you know, we are not there only to represent the country or to, like, you're representing snowboarding and what snowboarding is about in Olympics, and you have to remember that when you're there. And, you know, if there's stuff that can bring that stuff out, you should do it for sure, because, you know, there's going to be a bunch of riders there who are going to do exactly the same stuff, and some of them will win medals and some of them will get fifth, but maybe if you're in the finals and you give it a go with some different kind of attitude and you get last, still people are going to remember you because you went all in, you know?
For sure.
I know a big thing with skateboard, a lot of people are upset. Skateboarding's involvement in Olympics is who's actually running or who's organizing it.
Yeah.
And it's like the International Roller Sports Federation.
Okay, yeah.
And it's kind of, I looked at their website and it's kind of weird. Like, it's speed skating, like rollerblading and like roller hockey and that kind of stuff. And the media they have on skateboarding is not that good. Like, really, on their front page is like a falls compilation of skateboarding.
Okay.
Which is kind of shitty. I know people were like upset about FIS involvement in the Olympics, and they'd rather have like another organization. How did you feel about doing all those FIS events and how they ran Olympics?
Well, I thought that there had always been there's always been major issues if you think about the relationship between snowboarding and FIS, but the way I see it in the World Cups and stuff, they ran the contests when I was doing it very well. They were, of course, there's a really strict guidelines what you can do and what you can't do and stuff, but when it came to snowboarding itself and towards snowboarders, everybody were in the same line, and they were, you know, nobody was better or worse before the competition started. So in my opinion, that was good, but at the same time, it's really bad when it comes to Olympics, because they are not using, for example, the best shapers in the world to cut the pipes or make the parks, which is really bad. Like, we've seen it we've seen it in Canada, we've seen it in Sochi now. Like, the pipe was melting. It was horrible looking. Like, it's not a top level contest there, you know. Like, it's a really, really good. All the snowboarders were amazing, and they did really good job there. But, you know, the pipe was horrible, and you can't go around that.
No.
Yeah, it looked so bad. I remember because the X Games were like, you know, a week or two before, and that pipe to me looks amazing. It looked flawless.
Yeah.
And then, you know, a couple weeks later, they're riding the Olympics, which is supposed to be the biggest thing in sports in the world, and it looked hard to ride. It looked, you know, I've ridden better pipes on the East Coast of America.
Seven Springs.
Yeah, I mean, there was a huge kink at the bottom, and for sure you can see people hitting it, but you know, that's just really bad. And if you think about it, like how much preparation some of the guys do when they want to go there. And I know, like, I could go on about politics a lot about it and stuff, but at the end of the day, it matters that when the riders show up in the competition like this, you need to have everything ready for them so they can show their best and do like what they came there to do, and so they don't have to go into some, I don't know, they call it team captains meetings there, because you can't go to riders meeting. But anyways, like, to tell their coaches and stuff that, okay, dude, the pipe sucks and I don't know what I'm gonna do, like, and they go through that stuff. Whereas the only situation, in my opinion, is that the organizers need to make everything ready so well that if there's one thing that's gonna affect it, it's the weather. Other than that, everything needs to be really good condition. Like when you watch US Open or Laax Open this year or X Games, it's like really good. Everything is perfectly shaped. Like US Open to me, it was the best looking contest I've seen for a very long time. So
I wonder if there was any fallout, if anyone got fired or at least reprimanded over. It wasn't just the pipe. I mean, the park was dangerous as well.
yeah, I heard then that there was that the jumps were kind of too kicky and landings too flat.
Yeah.
But I don't know. But I think at the end of the day, it's just a offer they get from different shapers, and they just pick not the best one in this one for sure.
So
That seems so counterintuitive. Like I mean, like I keep saying, like the U.S. Open, Laax Open, X Games, they all look incredible, right? And why are those the highest level in snowboard? I wonder if that happens in other sports, like other Olympic sports. Like, did they go to the Olympics and like, yeah, actually, this isn't the best situation?
Like, I'm sure in FIS now, and there's people who are more involved in snowboarding and have snowboarder backgrounds, but in US Open and Laax Open, for example, it's made from snowboarders to snowboarders, and you can see that for sure.
Yeah.
And that's important, it's the formats and the politics and stuff like this, in my opinion, can be leave a little bit behind. The only thing that really matters is that you need to focus on where the riders right now can take the sport, and they just can't do it well if the conditions are not good. And that always makes me angry to see that stuff, because I know how much time they put into to get into the good competitions and stuff, and then you show up there and you can't show your best because the conditions are not there.
So why did you think that surfing may be able to handle this, but skateboarding might be in trouble?
Well, in my opinion, surfing has a really good tour, the World Surf League, and they have already divided, like a lot of surfers have divided in different categories already, and it just seems that it's very clear in surfing the way they want to do things, and I've always like looked up to the whole tour there. So I don't think that this tour, that the Olympics will actually go over, like that people would actually give so much respect for the Olympic winner comparing to the World Surf League winner, and that's the thing that really helped me to think that I think that the surfers are able to handle it much better than skateboarders, where I think that the fact that there's now a lawsuit or everything going on between two different alliances, it's already a sign that they might be in some real discussions there how to handle things.
Do you think Slater, at what he'll be almost 50, will be able to qualify for the U.S. team then?
Yeah, I think so. He's great.
And man, it's ageless.
But definitely I really look up to how everything is done in World Surf League. It's like it's the most interesting tour in the world to me right now, because there's like you have absolutely no idea who's gonna win, because every wave is different and everything is like, it's really hard to predict like how's Tipu gonna be or who's gonna win in different contests. So that's really important. And I think in snowboarding generally that should be the direction to take. And I think the best way to do that is to start changing the parks a little bit.
So do you tune in and watch the surf events as they come on
live?
Yeah,
I follow almost every surf league event, just because it's just very interesting to see like how different guys are doing there. Because in snowboarding now, it's very easy to predict who's gonna do well in slopestyle. In halfpipe, it's getting much better, I think, thanks to Danny Davis and those guys who have really changed like the stuff, like for the technical difficulty, like that judges are actually giving respect respect to backside sevens and alley-oop stuff and switch methods and stuff. But really, in surfing generally, I like to watch it because it's really hard to predict who's gonna win, and that really makes it interesting.
Did you feel like Fanning was going to pull off J-Bay?
I did, yeah, because everybody else was having like moment or two there, but he was going like everything. He was super consistent there, and I think that the board he was surfing looked really good for that wave.
Yeah, and there's everything leading up to it too. I mean, just watching his heats, I get kind of like a tingly feeling like there's something bigger going on here, you know?
Yeah, definitely.
I feel like John just kind of sat there too long in the finals. Like I mean, it was like definitely a hard day to surf and finding the right waves, but I was like, Mick just seemed way more hungry.
Yeah, I don't know there. It's hard to say, but it's also in surfing, it's really cool to see like who is actually really good in those kind of conditions. Like they know how to keep the priority and how to play the game there. So yeah, there's a lot of like mental things going on there, which is really interesting to me to watch, because that is a really good sign. Like that really shows the like how strong the athletes actually are there, you know. And
yeah, I've heard things like, even though they say that they're all friends, and they say that Kelly's one of the worst ones. If you're in a heat with him, he'll like fuck with you. He'll say stuff like before they go to paddle out, like, "Oh man, you can take the first wave. I'm not worried about it." And he'll lie. He'll say like, "Oh, I think I'm going to go up towards the end of the buoy. I think that's the best spot." He'll just try to get in people's heads, especially if it's a much younger guy.
Oh yeah, probably.
So you mentioned kind of being the change and doing different events that are more for snowboarders, by snowboarders, and you just recently did Auntie's World Cup.
Yeah.
How did that go, and what is the trajectory of that event?
Well, it's a grassroots event for sure. It's a banked slalom, and we have a small park session there. We don't do anything huge. We just try to bring all the riders, no matter what their level is, together. That's really important generally in snowboarding, and that's what we're really trying to do in Finland now, is to really create these grassroots events for the national cup. Actually, like we have banked slalom, we have like couple pipe events, and in smaller pipes too, you know, just to bring older guys and younger guys together and ride together, because that's ultimately like what we've been missing back home a lot, is that, you know, the kids can actually see their idols in the same event and have a good time. And that's what my competition every spring is about, really, like trying to get the best guys in the world, like from Finland at least, couple of them to show up and have a good time there. And then other than that, just bring some crews and small kids from the local towns to snowboard together and see if we would actually be able to get few of these younger guys to really get stoked on riding and maybe start doing some competitions and hopefully follow our footpaths.
Is it rare because I know, you know, I can think of quite a few like really good Finnish snowboarders. I always think of that region of having really good snowboarders, but are there a ton more Finnish snowboarders that we don't hear about outside of Finland that rip, you know, the little like secret?
Yeah,
is it hard to like reach out, you know?
Yeah, definitely. We do have a lot of good snowboarders in Finland. And I have to say we had a really long, a couple of years, a period where snowboarding wasn't really growing that much in Finland. But last year it changed a lot, I think, that, and kids are finding snowboarding again, so that's good. But definitely in my age and a little bit like younger, about 5 years younger and stuff, there's a lot of good riders.
How old are you?
I'm 31 now.
What do you think sparked the growth last year?
I think that the national association changed a lot, and that helped people to get more into snowboarding, because what's been going on a lot in my opinion back in the days, a few years back, is that the focus was going a lot into like who's gonna win the medal in the Olympics, who's gonna win the medal in World Champs, or who's gonna win the TTR, and they were focusing so much on only the juniors who were kind of getting into the national team or who were already in the national team, the riders, and they forgot all the like what's super important in whole snowboarding is the grassroots. Like we need those competitions where people can just show up and don't even think about it's a contest. They can just lap and do a banked slalom run and go hit a couple jumps and do another run and get a time and see it and feel like, oh, it wasn't even really a competition, but I actually got third. Maybe I should do more of this and, get kind of a feeling that it's not so serious all the time. And that's what the national team and national association in Finland has done now. They're really trying to change it up like that. We are going to have a really good base in Finland for snowboarding, and you don't have to be the best and you don't have to try to go out there and be the world champion or film the sickest video part of your life, but you just need to be able to enjoy these events and enjoy time with your friends and snowboard.
It's so interesting that bank slaloms over the past few years have brought that fun element back into snowboarding. When I was growing up and getting into snowboarding, it was just evolving from kind of a ski mindset where slalom and giant slalom and racing, everyone had a racing board when I was young, and there were hard booters, and the freestyle movement was just starting to evolve out of it. But a lot of those guys, the person that got me into snowboarding, my uncle, had fun racing. He loved doing it and would try to push me into it, but I was a young kid looking up to Damian Sanders and guys that, were making the transition out of it. So to me, racing was lame. But now it's come full circle where you can be any age and do a bank slalom. There's no way in hell you can tell me that's lame. That's some of the most fun you'll ever have in your life on a snowboard.
Oh yeah, for sure it is. It's so much fun. And it's super funny. Last year in my competition we had Mark Kukoski and a couple other guys, like a really good riders, and my friends, they were there, and we were all like, man, this is exciting. Who's gonna win? Who? And we were really going for it, and it was so nice because you don't have to be so afraid of a kicker or think about like, okay, I'm gonna go for the sickest air right now. You're just gonna go for the time, and actually racing against the time is really interesting and fun for sure.
My big thing was the beautiful thing about snowboarding and skating and I assume surfing is we do have things like that. We have cool events that get people together and get people excited that maybe are different than what you see in mainstream media. And I think that's why like we're always going to be okay. Like skateboarding, snowboarding is going to be okay because there's something you can find that you really enjoy that's not what's represented in the mainstream.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's like that's really important also because I mean, if you do a lot of competitions, for example, in snowboarding, you do the tour. I did the tour for so many years, and I admit I was living in this bubble that I'm like, okay, man, I'm doing competition every weekend or every other weekend, and I'm doing good, and that's super sick. And I didn't think about anything else, just making it happen. And then when you come back out of it, and it's springtime, for example, for the kids and for the riders, you're pretty tired after that time, and all you want to do is to snowboard with some of your friends, and then but you suddenly see that, oh man, all my friends are actually been doing the same tour and they're really tired as well, so I don't have any buddies to go ride with. So having these competitions and stuff is super important because all these grassroots events, because you can just go there and see that that's what snowboarding is about. You didn't start snowboarding for a medal or for a video part or to become even a professional. I think you started snowboarding because you really, really enjoyed being on that board and making turns and just doing things from there. And then, it just, all these things just naturally happen to some other people. They develop ideas that they want to do competitions, and some people want to do go ride big mountain and stuff. But the most important thing is, to me at least, with my event and all the stuff we do back here, is to really try to bring people together more in the future. It's a good reminder for the professional riders to see that, you know, you can still ride a lot and have a good time, even though if you've had a long season, and you can actually get some of your best days on snow like that, and like good memories too. And it's important for both sides, for the rookies and for professionals.
I've never thought about it from that standpoint. If you're on the level of giving 110% every weekend on this tour circuit, that's stress. And then to have an event where the stress is lifted and you're hanging out with your friends and just having fun, but still somewhat in the contest format, that's a huge relief.
It is. It's a really cool thing. I mean, I'm not sure how all the guys are doing it right now. Like I know that, for example, RK1, the guys in Stale and Alec and those guys, I think they're really good way how they're representing snowboarding to the world and to the core audience and the young guys. They're like, I know, for example, for Finnish kids, they look up to them so much now because they have that good feeling. Like they can do competitions and they can go do filming and they're just having a good time. And that's what snowboarding is about. But at the same time, there's a lot of riders who are really good, but they're so different. You know, some of them are kind of like lonely wolves. They just go there and they're doing it like really hardcore, and they're super tired. And you after the season, they just want to be done with it, and that's no good. And you don't want to see that happen, because I've seen it happen for a lot of my friends who've been professionals before, and they just like, you know, the light and the fire just shuts, and they don't want to snowboard that much anymore, and that's no good.
Was there ever a time where you were feeling that way?
Yeah, I mean, doing the whole circuit, I was definitely feeling it. I never wanted to quit snowboarding, but I wanted to change it up a lot. You know, I think it was 2010 when I made the call, like at the end of the year there, when I was like, man, I need to do something different, just because I was not feeling it anymore. Everything was the same all the time. So, you know, I did competitions for about in 7 years or something. So I did all the same spots every year I went there. So there was no variation or anything. And then at the end of the seasons, I got to go somewhere else to snowboard a bit in some different environment. And that was really cool. And that's when I found powder.
Did it really take that long to find powder? Or have you really not ridden much powder up until then?
Oh, well, I rode powder pretty much every season, like when we went to Japan and stuff, but we never really went to film there. So I definitely been riding powder for a long time, but not really like really focusing on the fact that I think in powder riding generally, it's about, if you really want to get good riding lines and stuff, you need to put everything aside and just focus on that and really, really start learning about things that you just don't really almost have time to do when you're doing the circuit, like competition circuit, because you have to have a lot of knowledge about snow and how to move in the mountain and how to really actually start riding a bigger line. So I just felt like it's either I keep doing a lot of competitions, which I had kind of burned out already, or should I take the new path and really go for it? Because I really, really, at the end of the day, like to be on my board, and I want to do that for the rest of my life. So if something feels bad, and I don't like it, then I just have to change it up the way that I still have that I'm really interested about snowboarding, and I feel like I can be better at it.
How did you communicate this career path change to your sponsors, and what were their responses?
That was really hard. I mean, I had this idea of creating my website antisworld.com, and at that time I was writing for Flow, and they didn't like the idea that I wanted to do my own videos and have my own website and try to focus on more on POW. They wanted me to just do more competitions, and they didn't see that I have the potential to ride. And
which I have to interrupt here for a second, which is a shame because from my point of view, I was sharing this story with AJ earlier. When you started winning contests on Flow's product, their bindings specifically, I worked in retail at a snowboard shop at that time, and we had pushed them away as a gimmicky company, to be frank. You know, hey, your foot might fall out. We've tried them and had them fail, whatever, and there wasn't a lot of demand. You started winning. You're all over X Games, everywhere, winning. Totally legitimized the product. And we had people come into the store that would buy a board from us and not buy bindings because they wanted Flow bindings. They had to have them. It was the first time that we could never really talk to a customer about another product and say, hey, this is kind of similar. Try this. No, it was just we need a binding that we can get into and out of easily. And from my point of view, you legitimized it, and I'm sure made a huge impact on their sales.
Yeah, I hope so. But yeah, I mean, if I go back to that, it's like, you know, I rode for Flow since I was 14 years old. First in Finland for a couple of years, and then I got my first sponsorship from there. And then, you know, to me, it was all the guys were telling me like, dude, that's no good, dude. Like you're riding those bindings, you can't. And I'm telling you, man, it was quite. I'm like, no, but I don't care. They're my sponsor, you know. So I'm gonna represent them. They believe in me, you know. And it went for a while, and it was a really good ride. I got a lot of good friends from there, and like when that ended, I was really heartbroken. I was like, oh, I can't believe it happened because they were with me from the start, you know. But then at the end of the day, I had to listen to myself and think like, okay, they don't believe in me in this career path that I want to take, so I need to leave. I can't do another deal with Flow because it's not gonna help me. So I had to do it, and that time, luckily Billabong was really believing in me, and their team manager over there told me that either you're gonna go for it full on or you're not gonna go for it at all. So which one is it gonna be? So I was like, okay, I'm gonna go full on then if you guys believe in me, and that really helped me a lot because, of course, like that kind of change, like you're in a competition world and then you're like, oh, I really want to ride POW and try to learn how to ride big mountains and stuff. And I mean, it's scary thing to do that change because there's going to be a lot of people telling you like you shouldn't do it. I don't think you really do it, but at the end of the day, you just have to believe yourself, you know, like, and don't care about all those comments because you need to do what feels the best.
Was there like when you were making that transition of, okay, I'm going to stop filming contests and focus on filming in the backcountry? You know, I mean, you've ridden a little bit before, but never really filmed. Was there times you're like learning and then you felt like, oh, there's all this pressure I have to perform in something that's brand new?
Yeah, man, I was like, I had this idea like, man, I want to go there and I'm going to shred the line and just air and do 720s from wherever kind of idea as a kid would have. But it's a hard reality to think that you're going to start eating a lot of shit and then you're going to fall down. And for a long time, I was like, my plan for quite a long has been that I really want to ride big mountain lines. But it just doesn't happen overnight. For sure doesn't. Like, you have to put some time into it. And for many times it's like, you know, we were in the backcountry and I was looking at some lines and I was not sure if I'm able to actually do it. So we just went to hit some jumps, and that was much more easier way for me to kind of get into backcountry rather than going from icy halfpipe straight into the big mountain lines. But you know, it's been a while, and there was a time when I was thinking like, should I do a little bit competitions and should I do a little bit powder, but it just doesn't work that way in my opinion. You have to like really focus on one thing and do it really well. to be able to establish yourself as a rider like that. And that's my goal right now. I really want to just learn to be a better big mountain snowboarder.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I saw something where it was like someone from the Finnish team got injured for the Olympics, and they're like, "Oh, do you want to do it?" And well, I'm gonna ride powder, but it was more like I don't have the preparation. I haven't been preparing for that really, so my focus is completely shifted.
yeah, definitely. I actually, well, almost every season after I kind of got done with competitions, I've done a one contest here or there, just because I got like, for example, in 2013 in December, I got the call from the national team like, "Hey, do you want to do this contest in Finland? It's a World Cup." And I'm like, "Oh, I could do it for fun just because I'm around there." And I did it, and I got fifth, and they put me in like as an alternate for Sochi, and that was pretty random. I was like, did one competition, and then they called me like, "Would you like to come?" I'm like, "No, I can't go because it's not my focus anymore." I just showed up just because I just want to support the whole competition over there for the national team and stuff. Because those are the guys over there who have actually helped me a lot with my career. So when there's anything going on with the national team in Finland and they need me, I'm available for that.
I'd say the other thing besides just focusing on powder that you've gone all in on is producing media and managing your website. You've going back to the Olympic blog post, and then there's several other really good blog posts and video content that you've been producing. Two things I wanted to talk about there. Three, really. You wrote a couple of blog posts that were just, aside from the Olympic ones, things that really needed to be said. One was, "I am not gifted," and the other one was a blog post on turning. Could you speak to those two posts a little bit?
Well, yeah, I'm not gifted is the first one I did last fall when I released my first new website, and it was just something I wanted to say to people who are, because it's a very personal thing to say about that stuff, but it was very important for me because I've never been the most gifted snowboarder there. Like when I started snowboarding, all my friends were learning 360s and 540s way big faster than I was, but I was very determined to be able to do that stuff, and I was just thinking about snowboarding daily all the time. And it was just, the whole idea about the whole blog is that it's not only about snowboarding. It's a lot about like understanding that really, if you really like something a lot and you put a lot of time into it, you will for sure be able to handle and do good things with that thing. And that's important. Some people are like food a lot. They want to be cooks, but they're not the best talents out there, but they really, really love it. And, they will become cooks and good ones if they really put their time into it. And that's the same thing in snowboarding, really. Like my whole idea in snowboarding generally when I started it was that I really, really, really wanted to be good at it. But it was not the fastest way to be good at it. It's like when I did stuff when I was a kid, we didn't do any jumping or anything like that. I was playing soccer and all those normal sports that everybody else in Finland is doing. And then finding snowboarding was just something crazy, and learning tricks and stuff. That was really hard for me at first.
Did you play soccer with your uncle Arto? Was he like?
Sorry?
Did you play soccer with your uncle Arto? Was that like someone? Where's your whole family a soccer family or?
No. My let's say that my dad is a kind of guy that watches any sport that comes out of TV. So I grew up just watching sports a lot, and I kind of grew up to that mental thing that if you really like something and you put your time into it and you think about it a lot, and there's gonna be difficult things, but if you believe in yourself, you can do it. And for sure, like for me, it's like when I'm going snowboarding and at my local resort, and I can see so many kids throwing down these crazy tricks, and I'm thinking like, all right, Antti, you've done a cap 9, you know, you want to do a cap 9 again. I really have to think about first, like, how would you do a cap 9? Like, that's how it's been for me for a long time. Like, I really need to like think stuff I want to do before I do it. I'm not the type of rider who just like goes like, all right, I can go there in this day and just gonna learn like 4 new tricks in one day. That just doesn't happen for me. I have to put a lot of time to myself to think about things to be able to progress as a snowboarder.
Do you think that mentality has given you the edge over some people? Because I feel like nowadays you have to be doing what you're doing, like producing so much content all the time. Like everything's so instant, everything's like constantly being updated. So there's a demand. There's such a huge demand to find and get good content. And I see you as like always pushing stuff out, and I'm kind of like, man, how does he do it? How's
Yeah,
there
man.
so much stuff coming?
I think sometimes I'm pushing too much stuff out. Maybe like, I mean, it's really funny because I think it's important to talk about things and show things that are important to you. For example, with my website, I don't post there so much stuff but when I post, it really matters to me. And when it matters to me, it gets more interesting, hopefully, for people to read about it, because I'm really telling what I think about it, and that's important. And that's like, you know, for example, for video edits, I don't release any video edits before this fall, just because I think that it doesn't make any sense for me to release like really short, quick ones, because everybody's doing that. For sure, we're doing some Instagram edits like everybody else, but like, I mean, with the content that I want to bring out with my filmers, is that we want to really focus on the quality from like with the stuff that we're releasing. So with the website, at least, I'm only posting their stuff that I think it's really, really good and important.
And I would say that you're absolutely achieving that bar. I watched the first episode of the Statements video series that you've been working on, and towards the end of it, you ride this perfectly sculpted, it looks like the powder superpipe. And I'm just wondering, what is the backstory behind finding that spot, and what were you thinking while riding that line?
It's that's actually right next to the tallest mountain of Sweden. That's from my home. That's about 5.5 hour drive. But that was last spring when I decided that we need to go to a new spot in Scandinavia to explore a little bit more, and we found that place, and it was crazy because it's like an old moraine, an old glacier there, and it just looks perfect. And yeah, that was around like end of May, and it actually had some pretty good snow, and not the deepest pow, but definitely rippable, and that was one of the best little lines I did on that place. And it's cool, like that's part of the whole thing in backcountry snowboarding, and for me especially, like because I'm from Scandinavia and up northern Finland, it's that there's a lot of unexplored places and a lot of first descents you can do up here. So that's one of the main things for me, that every season I want to be here to catch some good conditions and find some new spots to ride.
Can you elaborate a little bit on the blog post about learning to turn? I thought that was great as well.
Well, let's say that when I strapped in first and I started riding POW, I thought that I have to slash a lot to
Make
to
up
keep the snow up, and I was in the white room all the time. And then I had to like really think about like when you drop into some lines and stuff, there's a lot of things that matter about your turning, and that's like what kind of different turns can you do? Like, you know, you need to have a good flow, of course, but you need to understand like that learning really how to turn your snowboard is probably the best trick you will ever learn, because that will be able to get you into some really cool places, but also it will, if you know how to be able to perform different kind of turns in difficult situations, it can actually also be it's a very good skill to be safe.
It's amazing for me to hear you say that with the level of snowboarding that you've achieved. And I think learning to turn really well is something that's accessible to almost anyone that stands on a snowboard. But you go in, I live right across the street from a small mountain in the Washington, D.C. area here. And you go over to the park and you see hundreds of kids hitting jumps and rails that can't turn. It's changed a little bit recently with the popularization of some of the carving videos, but it's you're absolutely right. I mean, and just the feeling of turning and kind of digging a rail in, it's amazing. You feel G-forces.
Yeah. I mean, like, all these things that I wrote about turning is also from my own experience. Like, I took it for granted, you know. Of course, I have a benefit of being my background as a half pipe rider, and you know, there you know how to ride with your edge. But really, like, bringing that skill in the backcountry and really like using it in the right way is totally different, and that's because of the environment that I grew up in. There's no POW in Finland that you can actually learn about these things so well. So at the end of the day, it's really cool now that carving videos, like, and all the carving is coming back into it, because it's fun for sure, and it's not that lame as people were saying back in the day. Like, right. When I was like, dude, you're not jumping, you're super lame. But it's really important to like see that it's part of what snowboarding is also, and you know, needless to say, you can do some pretty crazy things only with turns. So
shifting gears a little bit, I'm wondering what the skateboarding scene is like in the Arctic Circle.
It's getting good. I mean, there's definitely a lot of skateboarders in Rovaniemi, where I'm from, and we're right now actually building the first concrete pool here. So it's really cool, and we're getting, like, down south. It's really good, the whole situation with skateboarding, but here it's still like, you know, people in the city council and stuff think that it's not a cool thing, and something like just the normal things, that they don't put enough efforts to really push skateboarding into a better way. But now we're actually luckily getting the first real concrete park and pool here, so it's getting there for sure.
How many days out of the year are you able to skate street, or are you like shoveling sidewalks?
I'm usually just skateboarding mini ramp. I have a one at my cabin and with my friends, and I mean, I just do it as a hobby. I'm definitely following it a lot, but let's say that it's not the thing that when I'm on a snowboard trip, I don't usually even bring my skateboard, and I only do it in the summertime.
So is there like a street scene up there?
There is a street scene for sure, and it's definitely bigger than ramp scene, let's say that. But I mean, there's a street scene, and there's like definitely from down south in Finland, there's a lot of good skateboarders for sure. And I think it's gonna get better up north as well. Like, we have a lot of good ones here too, but I think the scene's gonna grow now that we're gonna get better parks as well. Because, you know, skateboarding is very easy to start with, you know, and it's accessible for anyone. You know, you can just do it right next to your home and just learn how to ollie and do stuff, and, you know, go from there. So it's a really cool sport.
When I started skateboarding, it was definitely looked down upon, you know, and it was hard. There weren't that many skate parks, but there's been such a push for free parks. I feel like there's skate parks everywhere now, and I guess I can see maybe one benefit. If it is in the Olympics, it'll kind of fool some of the people that, oh, skateboarding is this legitimate sport or whatever, and let's build more parks for these kids. And if that happens, yeah, that'd be great. You know, more better parks. Like,
I think you're right. I'm sure you're right on that, because I like back home, like here up in north, everything happens quite slowly, and There's been a huge fight between the skateboarders and the city council, like what should be done, and a lot of politics between the parks and stuff. And suddenly it happened that they decided to start building the park, and I'm sure there's been some talks like, okay, man, like skateboarding might be in the Olympics, so maybe we should build the park. I know that the decision didn't come because of that, but it will help skateboarding in Finland for sure. I'm 100% sure about that, but I just hope that it will always help it the way that it will keep it the way that the skateboarding can grow.
I wonder if kids will be able to like skate street spots more if they're like, "Yo, I'm training for the Olympics. Why are you kicking me out? What are you?
Yeah,
what are you doing?
I don't know. That would be great.
Oh, okay. Keep training.
Yeah, I don't know.
America.
That would be pretty sick. That's a super good excuse. I think that's an excuse that every skateboarder should use, at least right now.
That's perfect. So another question about life in the Arctic Circle. What is a cloudberry?
Cloudberry, it's like a, how do I explain it to you? You know, it's like it's kind of like an orange berry that grows in the swamp. It's you have it in states. You have it in New Hampshire and somewhere up north there as well. But
what's it taste like? Is it really sweet like an orange, or is it?
It's sort of sweet. Yeah, it's hard to describe that actually, but yeah, over here it's quite the treat for sure. We get all the other berries like everybody else, but that's like a rare one. You know, a lot of Japanese also travel here to find cloudberries, and you know, just to tell people that they actually eating cloudberry and stuff. So yeah,
I had never heard of it before. Do you have them growing near your house?
Quite near. Yeah, we have it usually like during this time of the year, and my dad's a really hardcore. He goes always like collecting a lot of cloudberries and picking blueberries and stuff. So we have it at home too. So it's a tradition here in Lapland to find and go pick berries from the ground.
They kind of look like a raspberry or something.
Yeah, it does a little bit.
Now I'm excited to try one. I was just up in New Hampshire. I blew it.
Yeah.
Nate, you got to go back to get some cloudberries.
So
I've never heard of these. I really want to try one. I love fruit.
Okay.
So we have a couple of listener questions that we'll get to in 1 second. But before we do, I wanted to ask you about a very unique sponsor that you have, partnership with an oil company. Could you share a little bit about how that came about and how it works?
Basically, they have this idea of like they have this mentality going forward, and they came to me asking like, what's my idea of being a free rider as a snowboarder, and I told them that that's one of the things as in snowboarding, a professional snowboarder, that when you are done with competitions and you don't stop, you want to do more with your snowboard, and you want to like become better at it and be a better all-around snowboarder. And my goal is to be a really, really good big mountain snowboarder. And they really like that idea, and they've been just thinking that this attitude that I have going forward and getting better in these things, that I don't want to stop to be happy about that at the level where I am, where I just want to be better and develop my skills, and they like that. And then they started to support my videos, and it's been really cool. They've been one of the biggest supporters for my videos, which is really cool, because at these days it's sometimes quite hard to find people who want to support only powder riding, you know.
Sure. So what an amazing partnership to come together here. You have your core sponsor that you've had since you were 14 saying, no, we don't support that. And you saying, okay, I'm going to follow my heart and do powder riding because that's what feels right. And a snowboard company couldn't understand it, but yet an oil company seeked you out because you made that decision.
Yeah, that's the funny to think it like that. But of course, you know, I can go like when I was done with flow, for example, I know that Northwave and Drake, they really liked the idea that I wanted to go explore more about my options and snowboard in the backcountry. And since I stopped riding for Flow, they've been backing me up 100%. So that's really cool thing, Like, I mean, we're trying to develop new boards and like for powder, and just something that I really like that idea that if somebody is only used to seeing you as one type of rider, there's gonna be a different brand. I believe there's gonna be people who understand what you want to do, and you just need to believe like you want to do the thing you want to do, and these guys, they're gonna find you for sure. You're gonna find them, and that's what happened between my new sponsors and me, and I'm really stoked about that.
Very cool. AJ, did you have the listener questions handy?
I do, yeah. So we sent out a message to our listeners, and we're like, what do you want to hear from Antti? And Mike Happy Bauer had a long question, but essentially it comes down to he wanted to know, I remember you would go to like to Toyota Big Air in Japan, and it looked like insane. It looked like the energy of the crowd and the whole event was crazy. And even other events like the Air Style and Munich and all these big snowboarding events around the world look like such an awesome time. And he was kind of wondering why you don't see that as much in the U.S. and like he's starting to see it a little more now, but it's not on the same level other places in the world. And I guess why isn't that happening in the United States? Because I kind of feel like snowboarding is big here, so why can't
it is? It's
yeah.
huge. Well, I always thought that at the X Games it was really cool times. I mean, crowd was pretty wild there. You could really hear them shout out when you were doing getting some air from the pipe and stuff. So yeah, I don't know. It's it's really hard to compare Japanese culture and fan culture to anywhere else. There's no place like that in the world. So, but I can definitely say that in States, I've experienced a lot of cool feelings about like the crowd. Like for example, US Open and X Games were always like a really treat to be there because the crowd was super good at the pipe. Everybody were like really came together and stuff. And I mean, I think that in Europe, for example, it's a bit more loose in a way. People can just show up and hang out and watch the contest and chill, have a couple beers there, for example, next to the pipe, and there's no problem with that. And then maybe in States there's some regulations of not about stuff and about like crowd and stuff, and maybe that affects on it a little bit. But in US Open, you're definitely feeling like that you're at the roots of snowboarding there. So I don't know. Hard to say that. I think I felt a really good crowd and good stuff going on in States, but in Toyota Big Air, for example, or in Nissan X-Trail in Japan, those are whole level different contests. There's like 30,000 to 45,000 people watching you, and they think they're only watching you, and it's crazy for sure.
Do you think there's an opportunity for Toyota or somebody to do that similar venue in the States? Just bring in bleachers, create an event, do scaffolding, do it in downtown Denver or something. Is there an opportunity that's being missed by these companies to replicate those type of contests?
I don't know. I know that Sean White's doing the Aaron Style stuff now, so I think he's trying to bring that type of. I think he's having like festivals and stuff there. I don't know how those things are going. Like I've only seen I don't know how the atmosphere is because I've only watched the webcasts on those. But I know that, for example, for Aaron Style, if you think about it in Innsbruck or Munich when they were there, that was crazy. Like it's a huge freaking crowd there, and it's a great atmosphere there. So there's definitely potential on these competitions, but finding a venue where the rider, where the jump, where the crowd, and everybody is like really tight in a way, you know, like you're right there. They feel like you feel like the crowd's right there, and you feel like it's a tight connection between everything. It's super important. Like you can bring it to stadium and you can have a jump there, but if the stadium is a little bit wrong way built for the jump or something, it can bring the crowd away from the jump a lot, and it's just not the feel. The feeling needs to be like that. That it's tight. That's what I think, at least.
I remember they used to do in San Francisco like the Icer Air, or it was like a big air contest at a baseball stadium, but maybe it was too like it wasn't tight like that. Like the Aaron style, it seems like the crowd and the X Trail or Toyota Big Air seems like the crowd's closer, even though it's like a big crowd. They're all like more in on the action.
Whereas they are. They're like in Aaron style when it's in Innsbruck. You have the jump up there, but then you like land and you ride into this kind of a bowl that's a run out for the ski jump, and that whole bowl there is filled with people you're surrounded by people like who are watching you from above, and it's really cool. So it really gives you the feeling like how many people there is, and the people can actually see what you're doing really well. So that's just one of the things that's really important for sure.
They need to do think about the venue is the biggest.
Yeah, I think finding a venue for a competition like that is super important for sure.
And it sounds like let the fans drink.
Yeah, a couple beers at least. You know, you don't have to let them drink, of course, like however it is. But, you know, like I said, in Japan, for example, when I was in Nissan X Trail back in the day, it was in Tokyo Dome, and it's like a biggest baseball stadium there, and they filled every seat. There's 45,000 people watching the competition, and they build a story behind the riders, and when I came there, they were like, Antti, you can't go out there and from the dome because the crowd's gonna freak out because you're here. And I'm like, okay, what do you mean? And then me and Heikki, we went out, and the crowd totally freaked out. We went to Starbucks or something, and we couldn't get out, so they had to come save us from there because the crowd was so crazy. And we were like, okay, now I understand what you mean. And it's like they're building a crazy stories behind the riders, and they're really bringing the hype up a lot there. So those are just the things that really matter in a way. Like, for example, in Japan, they treat every rider the same. Like if you get invited in the competition like this, they were able to tell the people or the media about a lot of good things about these riders, and they were able to bring the story for the people more. So they knew each rider really well before they even came there, and that really created a really there was a connection between the crowd and the rider.
So hear that, Sean White, if you're listening? Tell the story. We just gave him some free.
Sean for sure knows about these things.
We just gave him some free consulting.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that makes sense. I get. So is that in like their media? Is it just covering before the event? You know, weeks before. It's like, all right, here's who's coming. And here's who they are. Okay.
Yeah.
So we need to do that.
AJ,
to build it up.
Did your Uncle Rufus have a question?
Uncle Rufus always likes to ask questions. He's a listener of the podcast. He wanted to know about nicknames, like Uncle Antti and Anti Autti, like the car. Like, do you have any cool nicknames like that?
Well, my friends started to call me Audi because in States, in X Games, they were not able to say my last name. They were always calling me Audi there. So it was Antti Autti. And so every time I was at home, my friends were calling me Audi. That's probably the only one I have right now.
And then you got sponsored by Toyota?
Yes, I did.
Is that so you didn't missed out on an opportunity there?
Yeah.
I had another question from someone, and I kind of wanted to ask something similar, but TJ Homan asked, what's your favorite animal? And I wanted to say polar bear, because I feel like, haven't you seen those snowboarding?
Polar bears? Yeah, I saw polar bear on June when I was in Svalbard. Those are pretty magnificent animals for sure. So
That's crazy.
I think right now I can say it's my favorite animal that I've seen. For sure. Yeah.
That's so cool. That's like, I don't know. I don't know if I'll ever see a polar bear in my life.
Yeah, I don't. It's quite. I don't know if I'm gonna ever see another one. It's
Oh, that was
quite
like a one.
rare.
That wasn't. Oh, okay. I thought
Yeah.
that was like a normal thing.
No, 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 not
Yeah.
a normal thing at all. Definitely not. Like you have to go from where I live, and like you have to go far north to find polar bears for sure. And yeah, they're huge.
So
Wow.
we have one more final question that we ask just about everyone that's on the podcast, and it's kind of deep and introspective. Is there any advice that you would give your 18-year-old self if you could meet him today?
I would tell him to be more patient. That's a thing I'm trying to learn ever since I started snowboarding, is to be more patient. And luckily, I wanted to start riding in the mountains because that really teaches you a lot about patience.
What are some specific examples of times that you weren't patient?
Probably in some competitions when there's usually it's a, it's because of the weather, or something that is not working and it's not up to me or up to people. So usually it's about the weather. So that is something that has been kind of it's been really trying to, that's something that I really had to be learning now about my patience in the nature, because you can't hurry nature. It comes, and weather comes when it comes, and that's how it is. And you don't learn that stuff when you're doing competitions or when you're in Finland. In winter you can ride here every day, but when you go in the mountains, you can ride in the day when the nature allows you to ride, and you have to take the full advantage out of that. And that's something I've been learning whole my snowboard career, and I think I'm finally starting to understand that much better. But when I was 18, I definitely didn't have any clue about that. All I wanted to do is to snowboard no matter what weather, and sometimes I got angry because I was not able to do tricks because of the weather.
Sure. Yeah. You once
I
said,
remember he had this. He
Go
had a
ahead.
quote. It was like, "There's no such thing as bad weather, only different kinds of weather."
Yes, that's exactly. But I still have that idea when it comes to snowboarding. You can definitely go
Yeah.
out there, and when it's difficult weather, you can make the best out of it and have a good time. But when you're out there in a situation where you really want to push yourself, those are the times when you need to find the patience and be able to wait the right moment to do it. And that's something that only comes with experience. And I really think that that's some of the best things I've learned ever since I stopped doing competitions, that with patience and really seeking the right moment to do stuff, it really matters.
Patience is a virtue, for sure.
Yeah.
This has been really, really fun, man. I appreciate you linking up with us in advance of your New Zealand trip. Did you have any parting words that you wanted to share with the podcast audience?
Well, thanks everyone for listening. And if you haven't read the story I wrote about the Olympics, or I'm Not Gifted, go check it at my website. They're there, and I keep writing some new stuff over there as well. So.
Please check out Antti's World at antisworld.com. That's ANTTISWORLD.com. The Statements video series that we discussed earlier is amazing, and the new season starts in just a few weeks. If you want to support the podcast, please click through the Amazon banner ad located at the bottom of each episode post before shopping on Amazon. Or you can also bookmark the support page on the Not Snowboarding Podcast website. You can also support the podcast by doing business with our sponsors. Let It Block Sunscreen. Use discount code TNSP through the end of the year for 40% off of 2 packages or more. The podcast is also brought to you by Shred Soul's Performance Skateboarding and Snowboarding insoles. The new skate and daily wear model is almost ready to hit the street. We have one more round of product testing to go through, where the skate team will actually be testing and giving feedback for any final tweaks that may need to be made before starting production. I'll keep you up to speed as it gets closer to launching. we'll let an excerpt of Antti's I Am Not Gifted blog post take us out. I have never been a quick learner. Rather, I've been good at looking forward and taking small but determined steps. I'm calculative, and I always think how to get better in the long run, and I learn better from my failures than from my success. I've seen a lot of talented riders that have been celebrated too early. When you're a kid, it's hard to handle, and eventually your riding suffers. The ways of acting when you're young will follow you far, and to change them is not an easy task. When a really gifted rider is celebrated and others ignored, those others want to show what they're made from. I got that feeling, but hey, I'm stubborn. Some that are ignored can lose their confidence, and those riders should be encouraged. So here's some encouragement for you. You don't have to be extremely gifted to become a professional. What is more important is to like what you do and understand to use your strengths. Also, being able to see what to do, how to do it, and keeping the fire burning is way more important than to advance quicker than your friends. So go ahead, hit the slopes, show everybody who you are. In the end, riding is the greatest thing ever, and that's what it's all about. And just to let you know, it hasn't got any easier for me, and it never will. No matter what I do or ride, I still have to think a lot. Until next week, peace.